Hello, hello. Thank you all so much for tuning in to this edition of the Notion at Work webcast. I am William Nutt, as always. I am the founder and chief strategist at Nutt Labs. We're a digital strategy agency and Notion consultancy. And today we are joined by Lara Bellatin. She runs a consultancy out of Peru called Productive, and she might tell you a little bit more about that. But today she is going to dive into kind of a comprehensive system for managing your finances in Notion, which includes, of course, expense tracking, but also invoicing and reporting and some other really robust features that really applies to any business that's using Notion as its operating system. So what we'll do is she'll walk through her system, and all the while you're welcome to submit questions within Crowdcast at the Ask a Question feature at the bottom of Crowdcast, and that has kind of an upvote feature where you can upvote any questions that have already been asked that you'd also like asked. And at the end, we will go through those and answer those. Lara and I will do that together. So we will not be stopping to answer questions unless anything is urgent, in which case you go ahead and comment within the chat. I'll be monitoring that. Otherwise, we'll do Q&A at the end. And with that, I'll hand it off to Lara. And thank you so much for joining us.
Thanks, William. It's nice to be here. Hey, everyone. As William said, I'm Lara. I made this setup to kind of go through how to manage your business finances directly on Notion. And yeah, just getting right into it, the setup has three main aspects that I'll go through. The first one would be a finance tracker, so income and expenses, as seen here. If we go into the finance tracker right here, you will see that if it loads, that you have kind of a breakdown of all of your expenses, your income, and then you can categorize it with this column right here, get the amount and the status of it, plus a date, the project, and all of this sort of information that you might need for when you have to do reports or stuff, or just see what you're spending on. And yeah, the second aspect, I'll just go deeper into it as like a bit later. But yeah, the second aspect would be reports generation. And the third would be within each project, just the client side of finances, as I call it sometimes, which would be the invoices, proposals, and a little client portal as well to get the client in the loop about the project. So yeah, starting with the finance tracker, as I said, you have kind of the information, the most relevant information present here for this month, for example. And you can see here that you have kind of materials, software, sales. These are just a few categories that I started with. And you can set the amount. And what's great about Notion formulas is that you can differentiate the amount paid from the amount that has been paid. So for example, here you have someone that has Sarah Day that wants to buy a planner from you. So you have that as planned because she said, for example, that she would pay you on October 8th. The amount she has to pay is $15, but the amount she has paid is zero because she hasn't paid you yet. So that actually doesn't count towards your month's total because it's not something that you currently have. And this allows you also to have two new views that are planned expenses and expected income, which are filtered by these status tasks that determine whether a payment is planned, pending, paid, or maybe canceled. Then some other views that you can have are the status board, which is the one that I use the most, I think. I like to just drag things over and kind of see what I have and what I'm expected to have, just in a more visual way. Oops, sorry. as well as a payment calendar. This I find it very helpful to see also in a more visual way, kind of how everything maps out in a timeline. So like, you know exactly when you're getting certain payments, when stuff happened and stuff like that. And you can just filter that by category or to just see certain pieces of information that might be relevant at a certain moment. And then, yeah, transactions by category. Sorry, I forgot about that one. It's kind of the status board, but just grouped by a category. And yeah. And another cool thing that I like to do is when you're working in a group, it might be especially helpful to assign a person to each specific transaction so that you know who was in charge of doing certain things and you know who to come to when you have any questions about it or anything needs to be done. And yeah, the whole bottom part, you could just ignore it for the moment. That's part of the reports section. So yeah, if you go into reports, I kind of created this page based off of the reports that PayPal does that are like you just choose a date or a time range and every single transaction that you've done will come up. For that, I created a mini table at the top called the picker, which is related and with a single row, here. And this row is related to every single transaction that you do. And to make it easier, every single view that you will find within this setup is filtered. You can kind of see it here. It's filtered to contain the page. So every new page that you create within any view will be filtered automatically. That's a feature of Notion that I use quite a lot. I find it's probably my favorite feature. I use it every day. And so yeah, the way this works is you kind of just pick a date, a start date, and an end date, for example, the 8th, and it tells you how many records there were. And then you scroll down and you can see the income and expenses by category. And at the top here, you can see how much has been paid for each category. So here, for example, the pending planner that we saw earlier has, you have to get paid $15, but at the top it says 0 because you haven't been paid yet. So once you change that to paid, that will update here as well. And at the bottom, you can kind of see here as well, $6 spent on G Suite and $10 spent on material. And then the main usage for this, I would say, is when you are at the end of the month, for example. I like to do reports to see where my money has gone and how I've gained money during the month and kind of fill out charts. I like to do charts as well and embed them into Notion. So this information for me goes directly to that. Okay, and finally, for the client side, I prepared an example for Bob Ross. And for each new client project, it's very helpful to get templates. And so for this whole setup, the template I made contains the proposal, which is a proposal template, an invoice, and a client portal. So going into the proposal, you get kind of, first off, a table of contents. I find it's really helpful to, when you're doing a proposal, because sometimes you want to navigate the document and find very specific information. And with long documents like proposals tend to be, it might be very hard to find the exact information the client or you is looking for. So yeah, I like to do a general description at the top, and I find that call out blocks emphasize information very well. Plus the icons I love. They're from Notion VIP, William. They're amazing. And yeah, you kind of get an about us, which in proposals, I feel like it's better to explain some information, like key information about your business and why you are the perfect fit for the project. Because at the end, the goal of a proposal is kind of to convince your client to buy your product or your service. So having that information at the top is very helpful, and uh, you can just write it once and include it in the template so that for every proposal that you make, the same description will be at the top. Or you could create several templates with different types of description if you do different types of work. And then you have the project objectives listed in bullet points. You can also do them as a numbered list if they're prioritized, and followed by the process, again in callouts. This is just a basic example of my process for work when I do Notion stuff. Just a very basic outline of discovery, building, and handover. And finally, not finally, the pricing and payment methods. I like to do these little tables with columns because I feel like they're much cleaner than creating a table. And this is only for aesthetics. You could also do just a table, an inline table, and get a better result actually, because you would have formulas and you could just calculate stuff without having to update every single feature manually like you do with this. I just like the look. And yeah, these are just, like I said, columns, and you have to go over each one to change them. And now, finally, the project schedule, which is, I think, the key part of a proposal and the client portal as well. You need to be on the same page as your client when setting dates for deliveries or milestones or meetings. So I like to set this out as a goal schedule for a project that I begin. And then that helps me organize tasks, payments, and all that, and have everything ready so that I can focus directly on what I need to get done instead of the logistics of getting things done. So yeah, and you'll see right here that that same timeline is part of the project, so that you can just go in and see what you do. And the good thing about this is that in this view, only on this view of the timeline, you will see these little status tags at the here, at the like next to the page title. You will see like whether it's done, it's today, and that's basically done with formulas. I think, William, you did this as well with your task manager, that you had several statuses. I really like to do that with emojis as well. I feel like it makes it much more visual, and I'm a very visual person, so I like that kind of. I know that the thumbs up emoji is done. I know that mailbox is today, and what I've included, let me see if I can show it, is if you include the time, for example, 2:18 p.m., you will see here that it says in 2 minutes. So yeah, I really like that part. And yeah, and right below you can see the finance tracker only for this project. And just to have like an overview of how things are going with the project financially, with a specific project. And you can see here like the same thing you saw with the main finance tracker page, that you have a status and a paid part, and then the contact that's associated with this with that specific payment. So not necessarily the owner, which would be part of your team, but an external contact and their email for anything, and well, the invoice file. So from the invoice, let's go into the invoice. You can see that I've made a very simple design for the invoice. I like very minimalistic looks when working with files and basically all around with Notion. So you just kind of have the most important parts. So your company's information, your business's information, the invoices information, just the date, the terms, the due date, and the invoice number. The client's info, so who you're billing, and the same little table I did for the proposal document, just a little bit more oriented towards the pricing of things. So you see the total amount per service. Here you can see instead of having the service and the description, you only have the service. And then the subtotal, the taxes. If it was someone in Peru, when I was making that, I would do that tax. That's why just as an example, the total, the paid, and the balance due. Again, you can also do this with an inline table, and it would be very much more functional because you can use formulas and have all of this kind of, you change one thing and the rest automatically updates. I just do it for the aesthetics. It's a few extra steps that I'm willing to take. But yeah, with tables, it's definitely much easier. And so, yeah, one of the things, also quickly, that I like is the latest update with backlinks. Within the invoice tracker, you can have as the name of the invoice transaction, the actual invoice. So you just click on it, and it takes you straight to it, which I find is very cool. You can just have all of the information at a single click, which is, I think, the best part about Notion. Everything is right there. And yeah, finally, the client portal. It's basically a more interactive version of the proposal. So you have the same timeline you did there. It's exactly the same. And then you also have the proposal, the actual proposal document, and the actual invoice, which just free easy access for the client. And because this is always linked here, it might be good to, once the proposal is sent, you could lock the page. So for example, page lock, and then you can't change anything. So yeah, it works kind of, it would work kind of the same as when you're sending a docs. It's just that it's more easy to edit. You can leave comments on it. You can invite your client on there so that they can make comments as well. And well, some basic information like the objectives, which would be the same as the one shown in the proposal. And then other details, like for example, he needs 15 brushes. And a general overview of the client project, and what you're doing. And yeah, those would be the three main aspects, And those three are just integrated into a dashboard shown here as your main landing page. You can see all of your active projects in a kind of Kanban board so that it's easy to just drag. For example, if for this thing that you're creating for Bob Ross, you're creating Ross, and you've sent them over for him to review, you can drag that over to revision. It's easier that way. And at the bottom, you can see your latest transactions, everything that has happened that is paid within the past week, with some information like the date and the category, and obviously the amount, and then expected transactions. So everything that is not completed and also not canceled would show up here. And you can just drag stuff to here. And that would mark it as paid. And that's it.
Lara, I am absolutely drooling over this incredible setup. What a powerful implementation of Notion. I mean, your use of Notion features and your technological savvy with formulas and that picker for your report is a really novel approach rather than having to manually adjust the filters like most users typically do. That is such an insightful implementation of Notion's features. And not only is it technologically sound and advanced, but it's also so aesthetic. Your commitment to the design, your willingness to use columns instead of inline tables, just for the better aesthetics. I totally align with that being a priority. And this is just an awesome configuration. I'm so impressed, and I know that everyone else here is too. And not only is it so clean, but it's the utility of it is just incredibly powerful too. So I don't even have to look at the ask a question box to know that a lot of these users are going to want some variation of this template, if not the entire functional template, just kind of like a freemium version of it. Have you made this available for download anywhere by chance?
Yeah, it is. So I made it thinking of not making it a complete setup. So you will see it doesn't have tasks, and it doesn't have it has contacts and a timeline. That's the only thing apart from the financial aspect of the business that I included, so that I could put it out as an add-on to any other setup that you already have. So I made it so that it's very easy to just switch out the relation to contacts and for yours and for timeline as well. And it is available on my website. I just uploaded it to my template gallery earlier today. So yeah.
Excellent. And we'll include links to that in the descriptions of the Crowdcast session, as well as the version of this video that we saved to YouTube. So everyone will be able to access that, and we should be able to send a follow-up email with that as well.
Perfect.
So I am looking through some of these questions within the Ask a Question poll, and there's a lot about automating connections to bank accounts, and so I can address that. As many of you have heard probably repeatedly, we have an API around the corner for Notion, and what an API is it's a method of allowing Notion to communicate with other tools and services. So a bank account is going to be a really good example of that. Once that API is available, eventually we'll have the ability to communicate with bank accounts. I'm not sure if bank accounts will be among the integrations in the initial release of the API, but it should be around the corner given all the other third-party tools that facilitate these integrations via APIs. So yeah, just like your QuickBooks or your FreshBooks, eventually you should be able to automate the import of transactions from bank accounts, and then you can kind of use Notion to reconcile them. And I'm sure Lara will have a robust update to this system once that's available. So basically the answer is not yet, but it should be soon. And Lara, feel free to add anything to that response.
No, I was just thinking that, the API seems to be right around the corner, and I've got like 1,000 automations I would use with Notion to just update things very quickly. So
yeah, it's going to change everything.
As soon as that's out.
And then Ronan asked if we have a specific timeline for the API. As you can probably tell, we're not certain about a particular date. It's been a long time coming. A lot of us have anticipated it soon for a long time, if that makes any sense. But we do have indications that it is very close. Some of us have seen early versions of the documentation. I think there's some internal beta testers. We have new hires that are intended solely to facilitate the relationships with integrated services. So we're seeing some real visible evidence that API is going to arrive soon, and we are all very eager to see it. So we will, on Notion at Work, we will certainly be doing a deep dive into all the API has to offer once that hit. And then Juan Carlos asked about collaboration. Is there a way to specify editing, deleting, or viewing certain columns or sections for different users within the same Notion account or workspace? So That is not currently an option when sharing a database. If you want someone to be able to edit a database, they're going to need access. If you want, they're going to need to be able to edit the entire set of properties. Now, what you can do, and this probably does not address your question, but it may help any others who are tuning in. You have the ability to share individual database pages. So, and that's an obstacle that I encounter a lot with the users that I work with. You can share the entire project's database, for example, and you can make it editable by the users that you share it with, or you can share just individual items or records or projects within that database. And so if you do share those individual projects with edit ability, the person who it's shared with is going to have the ability to edit all of the properties. So you can't choose which properties can be editable, but you can share an individual page versus the entire the entire database.
Yeah, and just a quick hack that I like to use sometimes. It works sometimes. When you want to share just a specific subset of your database. What I do, for example, tasks when I display them on my client portal is I'll have the main view of my tasks filtered by another database's property that's private to everyone. So I'll have tasks public and, for example, projects private, and then I roll up any property from projects into tasks and filter the main view of tasks with that roll up. I don't know if I'm mixing things up too much, but yeah, that, and then your client can see your filtered view on their client portal, and when they click on tasks, they won't see everything. It doesn't work all the time. When it does work, it's fine.
Yeah. Rollups are often a method of finding workarounds. They're pretty powerful, and if anyone's unfamiliar with kind of the fundamentals of relations and rollups, we have some previous episodes where we dove into that, so you can explore those on Notion's YouTube channel. So the other question in here was about integrating the financial tracking into the client portal. I imagine that was asked before Lara covered it, because she showed in a really nice way how that is integrated. So yeah, as I mentioned, this recording will remain available through Crowdcast. It'll also be on YouTube, and we'll include some of Lara's resources within the descriptions, as well as a follow-up email. Be sure to follow her on Twitter, where she is posting all sorts of good Notion insights. Lara, do you want to enter your Twitter handle or URL into the chat? And you'll also be able to visit her website, where you can access the version of this template that she described. Yeah, and if you have any other questions as you're kind of trying to implement some of these strategies on your own, you can find her on Twitter. She just posted that in the chat, and you can also find me at William Nutt. I'll include that, and I also run the website Notion VIP, where I have all kinds of resources there as well. So there's a link to that in the chat. And Lara, thank you so much again for joining us. I cannot express how impressed I am with what you've put together here, just from the technological standpoint and a utility standpoint, and then just the cherry on top is these really strong aesthetics. I absolutely love it, and I know that everyone else here does too. And we will certainly have you back.
Thank you so much. It was nice to be here.
And thank you everybody for tuning in, and we'll see you on the web. Bye-bye.